Kurdish forces in Syria say they've pulled out of a key strategic town in the northeast after a temporary truce put an end to fierce fighting. Turkey says it's attempting to create a 20-mile safe zone in areas of Kurdish control after President Trump pulled US troops out of the area. Kurdish fighters are now reported to have left Ras Al Ain on the Syrian side of the border, along with huge numbers of fleeing civilians. Our correspondent Ali Makboul has sent us this report from inside northern Syria.
Suad Mohammed is numb. She's been that way since seeing in a morgue the mutilated body of her daughter. The brutal killing of Hevrin Khalaf, a Kurdish politician, by Turkish-backed militants is now being investigated as a war crime. I feel I want to burn down this home, she tells me, because the memories of my daughter are everywhere and it's too hard to bear. Her whole life is playing like a movie in my mind. She told me she blamed Turkey and America for her loss. It was the announcement of the withdrawal of these American troops from northern Syria that precipitated this crisis and, in effect, gave Turkey the green light to invade. That US withdrawal is now very much in motion, a sorry end to what had been an effective partnership that won back all the territory controlled by the Islamic State group. Kurdish forces lost thousands of fighters in that campaign. Now some of the same combatants who survived the long battle against IS are dying at the hands of Turkey.
I think we managed to defeat ISIS all over North and East Syria, and it was not something easy. And I think what is happening now is a betrayal for the sacrifices that they have gave and that provided for the security and the stability of the area.
Well, for all the talk of ceasefires on the front line and diplomacy, people here are still very much in shock at just how quickly their lives were turned upside down. And those we speak to tell us they have very little faith that the world will come to help relieve their suffering. So instead, they continue to flee for their lives in huge numbers. Camps for the displaced near the Iraq-Syria border that had all but emptied are full again. Some families here told us they didn't leave their homes in the days of IS, but felt compelled to now. They're afraid of meeting the same fate as Hevrin Khalaf, when over recent years, so many thousands of Kurdish mothers have already had to bury their children. Ali Makboul, BBC News in northeastern Syria.
Well, earlier I asked Aykan Erdemir, a senior fellow at the think tank Foundation for the Defense of Democracies in Washington, if he thought the withdrawal from Ras Al Ain would be enough for Turkey.
I think there has been some strategic ambiguity in the ceasefire agreement between the US and President Erdogan. SDF is agreeing to a much limited withdrawal, not the entire 450 kilometers across the border. And I think this week is really going to be decisive whether a limited safe zone will be okay for Turkey for the time being, or whether there will be a further push beyond that. And that could determine the extent of fighting and what the US Congress will do to push back against that, and also what Assad and Putin will see as an opportunity to intervene.
You say a limited safe zone may be more realistic, but President Erdogan has promised people in Turkey that he's going to get the entire safe zone. Surely people will say to him, you haven't achieved what you wanted if you only get a limited zone.
Now, Erdogan has demonstrated that he has strategic patience. This has been the third cross-border operation, and there can always be a fourth one, a fifth one. So he is taking his time to extend his area of control. And let's keep in mind that he also has other projects at hand. One is relocating Syrian refugees from Turkey to this pocket in northeast Syria, start building homes for them, which would also be a boost to his struggling construction partners back in Turkey. So that there are multiple steps to his strategy in Syria, and possibly at this time he could see this as enough for the time being.
Just picking up on one of the points you raised there, his proposal to move refugees, Syrian refugees from the south of Turkey into a proposed safe zone. I mean, there are several million refugees in Turkey. Is it really realistic for him to expect to be able to move all those people across a border?
Now, the number he presented at the UN General Assembly address was 3 million of the 3.6 million Syrians in Turkey would be resettled. I think everyone knows that this is near impossible. And there is also a $26 billion tab which no one would like to pay. But nevertheless, for Erdogan, even starting with a small group would help him basically quell the anti-refugee sentiment at home. I think he would see this as a long-term project, not only to address the populist uprising in Turkey, but also as an opportunity to change the demographics on the Turkish border to create an Arab majority area, which is also part of his understanding of a safe zone.
Aykan Erdemir in Washington.